was only 1 hour before the markets even opened and everything crashed. SP 500 crashed, NASDAQ crashed, US 30 crashed. And if we take a look here, we can see at the time around 7:15 in the morning, 7:15, same thing for US 30. They all dropped at the exact same time and New York session hasn't even started yet. This entire move was triggered when Trump made a post at the exact same time on his Truth Social account. And that's exactly what we're gonna break down in this video. My name is Josh Paveo. I'm a full-time futures trader and I've been trading the news and fundamentals for coming up on 5 years now. And in this video, I'm gonna break down why the markets dropped an hour before they even opened and how I was able to take the trade and catch the move as it was dropping. If I didn't have access to a news feed, it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to know that Trump made this comment, because it's not like I'm sitting here on Truth Social and watching his account, constantly refreshing it, right? So if I minimize this, this is my news feed. You can see the headline right here at the exact same time, 7:45 in the morning. Trump says European Union has been hard to deal with on trade. Now, Trump recommends 50% tariff from the European Union starting on June 1st. Now, this information is only valuable if you understand context. And what I mean is 50% currently higher or is it lower than wherever the European Union currently is? Let me show you an example, because this actually happened a couple of weeks ago, the weekend of May 9th. We had a massive gap. Now this was inflation data, we had PPI data, but this right here, this was over the weekend. That's why we had such a big gap. Now, why did we have this gap on May 9th? Well, May 11th was the actual announcement. If we come over to the headlines again, I'll show you this one. You can see here the date, May 11th. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent, we have made substantial progress in trade talks with China. Also, there was another headline right here where he says, I'm looking forward to sharing the details Monday morning. Now, what was the actual announcement on Monday morning? The announcement on Monday morning, May 12th, this is once again for China, the U.S. agreed to lower its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%. So in this case, over the weekend, if they just said that they're lowering it to 30%, but we didn't know that it was at 145%, how do we know if 30% is a big deal? It's the same thing with the euro, right? So we can see what happened. We can see that it was 145, they dropped to 30, and look at the reaction NASDAQ had. Now, we just had a headline talking about potentially raising the tariffs for the European Union to 50%. So in order for us to know if this is important or not, we need to know what tariffs we're already at. If we take a look right here, before President Trump's threat today, May 23rd, 2005, to impose 50% tariff on European Union, we can see right here at the bottom, US tariff rate on most imports was 10%, right? We're going from 10% to potentially 50%, where the inverse was true for China. They went from 145 to 30%. This is NASDAQ first in the morning before those headlines started coming out. So if we'll fast forward 1 or 2 candles, this first massive drop that we saw, this was at about 7:19 in the morning, which you can see the time below. Take a look at the time that this came out right here, 7:19 in the morning. Basically, this was Trump just threatening tariffs on Apple. Now, Apple is the #1 tech stock in NASDAQ. If you don't know this, NAS 100 stands for 100 companies, right? So Apple being #1, it gave us that massive drop. If you take a look at other equities, look at US 30, right? If I was to measure this out from the top of the candle to the bottom, that's US 30, we dropped about, let's say 0.2%. If we take a look at the exact same move on NAS at the exact same time, NASDAQ dropped over 5%, over 0.5%. So over double what US 30 dropped, because NASDAQ, Apple is a very, very important stock for NAS. So it makes sense that it would react when we have comments about that. Look at this massive drop. If we take a look once again at the time, 7:40, 7:45, this is when Trump made that comment about recommending the 50% tariff. Remember, the 145% down to 30% from China gave NASDAQ bullish momentum, right? It pushed it higher. Now, we are at 10% and now we're jumping to 50%. It did the exact opposite. We had a massive drop to NASDAQ. Even when it comes to entries, technical analysis, in my opinion, is easy. Timing it and understanding how this stuff impacts the markets, that's the hard part. But anywhere when it's breaking this, I even had another entry down here, which I'll fast forward a little bit because it held support. And then I think this next candle broke and this was my entry. And then I had taken it down maybe like 90%. I closed somewhere around here for the second entry. So really, really good trade here, but it was just being in front of the news or having the news feed and the headlines pushed to me in order to even know, because I wouldn't have been looking at the markets an hour, 30 minutes before the New York session markets open, because I typically don't trade, especially NASDAQ, until after the stock exchange opens. So having access to something like this, a news feed, this is what's going to give you these opportunities. Because any trader that didn't know that this headline was coming out, you literally would have had to have just been lucky to be sitting at the charts and you see volume come in and you randomly take a trade. as opposed to having an Apple Watch or your phone, the headline comes to you, and then I'm like, oh, let me go check the charts. So for the next hour, all NAS did was consolidate, right? We have this really, really choppy price action and this massive drop that was 1 hour before the session even started. Less than 10 minutes before the New York Stock Exchange opened, while we're still consolidating here, a very important headline came out that completely changed my bias on NAS. So at 9:21 a.m., about 9 minutes before New York session opens, we can see this headline right here, German foreign minister on Trump tariffs. So he's responding to what Trump just said about the 50% tariff. Both markets would suffer. And then they specifically say, that's why we want further negotiations, right? Germany is in Europe, in case you didn't know that. You can see here, it says EU will continue talks. This came out 9 minutes before New York session opened. Let's take a look at what happened before New York session actually opened. The next candle literally just, oh, that's not it. The next candle literally just blasted right to the upside. Isn't that crazy? The exact same time we see a headline which reverses the reasons for this, we now see NAS reverse. This is what changed my bias to look for buys. So I'll play this out for a couple steps here. Took a little bit, but NAS did still recover about 70, maybe 60, 70% of the move overall. We'll go over to the analysis channel inside my live trading group, and this is the sells that I was talking about before NAS. It's 4 contracts. I had taken 15, so I was already break even on this. This was my second entry, actually. I had one up here, and the second one I told you guys about right down there. But this one is the buys. 10 contracts on here was already break even, and my entry, I didn't want to enter before the stock exchange opened, even though I saw this push. So I waited for this here, the wick to the downside, and then once it broke, I entered impulsively, and then I went break even when it hit this next resistance. So both the sells on NASDAQ and the buys on NASDAQ, I had reasons for both of them. It's not that often that you get to take buys and sells in the same day, at least for me, because I want reasons behind my trades. But understanding how to trade the news and fundamentals is a secret power that once you learn, you're never going to trade any other way. I hope these videos and these trade recaps are helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below.